Hello everyone. Now you will hear a short retelling of the film New Police Story. Enjoy watching. A completely drunk man got lost in the back alley and fell on the asphalt and turned off. This is Senior Inspector Chan. Before such a life, he was driven by events that happened a year ago. The robber took two people hostage at once. One of them was shot. The criminal demands that he be shown on TV, but the journalist got scared and ran away. Therefore, only the operator approached. It turned out that it was Inspector Chan who did not let the bald man pull the cheek out of the grenade and shoot the hostage. The hero, having received a bullet in the stomach, managed to throw a grenade into the sewer hatch at the last moment. The next day, the inspector counts his young subordinates who did not work as well as he did. One of them is Hong, the future son-in-law of Chan. The inspector is going to marry his sister Sun Hai. The gang, consisting of 5 extremist robbers, was placed on the roof of the skyscraper. They threw a bag down, which knocked out a window on one of the floors and went on their own. The poor man, who was supposed to open the safe, was sitting in the bag. But this is not an ordinary robbery. The bandit demanded that the clerk call the cops. The first car that arrived on the call was shot. All this is filmed on camera. Almost all cops were injured or killed. Soon the reinforcements arrived. The bandits ran into the building, but one criminal lagged behind and Sam was already going to arrest her. He even took off her mask, but the cops were shot and she managed to escape. Young criminals distribute loot depending on who killed or blew up the cars the most. Sun made a mistake and risks flying out of the gang. Angry Chan at the press conference promised to grab and punish the scoundrels. He came to the tent to the shot Sam and reported that the bandits' lair was found. Sam is not sweet anyway. He has a big debt due to his love of betting. A small detachment of Chan came to the alleged lair at an abandoned factory. Suddenly someone ran down the corridor. Then it seemed a figure with a raised hand. Chan opened fire and shot the dummy. The scoundrel and the hacker suppressed the radio communication and the policemen no longer hear each other. 2 were immediately shot. Once in a while, the cops get into the traps. All their movements are visible on the monitors. They are hung, dropped from a height, or simply shot. As a result, 1 inspector remained. All his people were tied and hung on cables. The bandits laugh at Chan. He asks the chief to lower the cops. One of them did, and the one who fell from a height crashed. Jock Wen offered Chan a game. Who will collect the gun faster? If he wins, he will save 2 people. But the bandit turned out to be smarter, and 2 more cops were thrown down. Another criminal decided to show the inspector that he was not so good at martial arts. During the fight, Chan accidentally stepped on his subordinate, got distracted and was defeated. 2 more killed the metal bars. Jock Wan reminded the inspector how he boasted that he would catch their gang, and made him kneel. Chan agreed to another fight. Only if he wins, the criminals will have to spare all the remaining policemen. Although Chan won, he had to go to bed in 20 seconds. He did not have 3 seconds. The same number of cops flew down. Desperate, the inspector grabbed a gun and opened fire on the bandits. Only Hong remained. His rope was set on fire. Chan threw himself on it and extinguished Hong's fall from a great height with his own hands. Leaving, Jock Wen activated the bomb, which would explode into minutes. Unfortunately, Hong also died from the injuries. The inspector collected all the bodies on a cart so that they would not be blown apart by an explosion, and managed to escape himself at the very last moment. Shocked by what had happened in the hall, he is silently sitting on the asphalt. That's how Chen lost all his people in one day. He stopped communicating with Hong. There was no wedding anymore. He got drunk. Once he was even robbed by 2 thieves on the street. It was then that Chan was found by Frank, his new partner. He dragged the inspector home and told him that his annual vacation was over. Frank says that the gang of scoundrels continues to be impoverished, and the head of the department wants Chan to take care of them. But he only got angry and drove the young cop away. Chan came to the bar again. Frank called him and said that he was now at Sun Hai. They say she is in danger. However, the cunning man decided to bring the bride and groom to the girl's birthday again. Allegedly, it was Chan himself who bought the cake, and he stayed for dinner to apologize to his beloved. But then he still ran away, because he is to blame for Hong's death. Frank found his partner in the bar again. He does not leave hope of interesting him in his business. The same thieves continue to rob people near the bar. But this time Frank did not let the couple escape with the loot. Finally, Chan came to his senses and broke one of the criminals. The whole area came to see the inspector, who has not been seen here for a year. The boss is ashamed of him for the fact that 9 policemen died because of him. But Frank stood up for his partner. He transferred to this department specifically to work with the legendary inspector. The boss is also engaged in the case of hackers. Therefore, they will have competition between the teams. Chan is trying to understand why Frank is so involved in this case. Where did he even come from? Finally, the guy admitted that he was the younger brother of one of the dead cops. The leader of the bandits, Jo Kwon, hears his rich parents swearing. The father called his mother shit, and then he stuck a guy with a pillow. The man slapped his son, accusing him of disgracing him. But his mother spoils her son too much, gives him money and says that he can do whatever he wants. Jo Kwon is covered with a flashback in which he is small in handcuffs, standing beaten in front of his father. For some reason, he places his anger and resentment on the policeman. The bandits created a computer game based on this case. Frank and Chan are helped by a girl from the SAS police. She noticed that the robber lost her bag of money somewhere. She was just trying to arrest Sam. Maybe the former cop is their accomplice. The partners looked into the bar where Sam usually hung out. There, the policemen were rude and even attacked them. Chan, as usual, is drunk, which is why he fights So-So. But in order not to leave his partner in trouble, he had to get together. The fight was stopped by Sam. The former debtor became the owner of the institution. The cops began to ask questions. However, Sam replies that he does not remember much from that night of the robbery. The only thing he gave them is a watch that belonged to the robber. They had a logo of some Christ bearers. This is a community of extremists, and just today they will gather on the roof of one of the skyscrapers. Immediately after our heroes, the police chief looked at Sam. A lot of athletes gathered on the roof of the building. The dude with red hair had the same watch as the robber. Other policemen interfered with the partner. The chief pressed on Sam and forced him to help in the search for the killer. Sue hid behind the backs of other guys so that Sam could not recognize her. At that moment, Fire opened fire and wounded the former cop. Sue wounded the boss and then drove up and finished off Sam. Before his death, Sam confessed that he had taken the money. After that, he was found by the bandits and he handed over his colleagues. They died because of him. Sue was also wounded by Frank. She and Fire go down from the skyscraper on cables. Chen and Frank went into a vertical chase, overcoming dozens of meters in seconds. Jokwon picked up his girlfriend. Fire is trying to hide on a bicycle, but soon falls off it. To distract the attention of the policeman, he wounded the driver who passed by the bus. Chan had to jump on top of the vehicle and try to stop the uncontrollable machine, which demolishes everything on its way, both cars and phone booths. When the bus wrapped in a lively alley, Chan finally entered the salon. The car of death continues to crush the store after the store. At some point, the bus was blown off the roof, since all the passengers were on the first floor. The driver's foot got stuck under the brake pedal. Chan removed it at the last moment. Also, in front of the bus, Frank stopped a truck filled with rubber ducks and did not allow him to fall into the water. Only Chan returned to work, and more than 60 complaints had already been filed against him. He found out that no one called him back to the site. After a small rumble, Frank confessed that he lied. He is not the younger brother of the killed Kwon, and not even a policeman, but he always dreamed of becoming one. He can help Chan. Sue lies on the couch bleeding. Jo Kwon was not going to take her to the hospital, so he just finished her off. The composition of the gang is already known. Sue is the daughter of a shipping magnate. Fire is the son of a jewelry magnate. Tintin's father is the president of a large company. Max Feng is a genius hacker, also from a rich family. But the most interesting thing is that the father of the head of Jo Kwon, the head of one of the police stations. The partners sat on Jo Kwon's tail. He immediately noticed them and stopped at the house of Sun Hai, Chan's girlfriend. Then a hacker drove up and threw a smoke bomb into their car. Hai herself arrived at the site. Allegedly, Chan wanted to see her. The girl is waiting for him in the conference room. Jo Kwon came up to her and hung a bomb on her neck. There are balls inside it. If they roll down, the bomb will explode. Or do it on a timer in 10 minutes. In this form, Chan found her with other police officers. The girl has to go carefully and balance the balls. They closed in the storage room with Chan. Hai tells his beloved that he was never guilty of his brother's death. He also confessed to her in love. The hacker contacted Chan. You can neutralize the bomb in a chemical way. Chan ran for the reagents, but Hai did not want to risk his life. Therefore, he simply cut off the wires from his neck, and the bomb did not explode. But suddenly the timer went crazy, and the couple had only a few seconds to escape. An explosive wave rolled over the site, and Hai was crushed by a pipe. In a grave condition, she was put in the hospital. Frank was arrested for pretending to be a policeman, and Chan for accomplices. Bandits came to visit them. In secret, Chan was told that they would rob another bank today. Sasa came to the rescue. She persuaded her father to let them go, and at some point he gave up. He left the room and accidentally turned on the cameras. He knows that these two are the right guys. Another officer also went to meet them and pretended not to notice the fugitives. However, after the couple turned the urn in front of the entire department, but even then everyone ignored them. Here on the way to Chan, the head of the site stood up. Unexpectedly, the man left his gun on the shelf and asked the inspector to return it when he finished. The bandits have already made their way into the vault with the money. Earlier, they left a clue in their video game, and thanks to one gamer, the police found out what the next target of the robbers was. Jok-won again asked the employee to call the police. There were a lot of people in the hall. Chan, with the guards, without too much noise, took them away from the site of the shooters. Soo called the parents of the bandits, and they all came to the bank. They were disappointed to find out what their children were doing. The hacker was scared and tried to escape, but Jok-won shot him. At that moment, the police arrived on the call. The bandits opened fire on them. Chan began to move up in an unusual way and defended the gun. Unnoticed, he failed to get close to the bandits, but Frank attacked on fire and shot him in the leg. Chan clung to the fighter in the Lego store. In order not to injure the children, the inspector offered him again to solve everything in a hand-to-hand combat, and he agreed. It was not easy for Chan to cope with a former Special Forces officer, but having received a star from the inspector, he tried to escape. At that moment, Frank and Jok-won came here. Wanting to shoot Chan, the scoundrel wounded his accomplice. Both fell into the reservoir with balls, and Frank hit Jok-won with a pile of Lego boxes. Just arrived reinforcements. The fighter wanted to shoot Chan in the back, but did not do this. When he heard that the inspector had asked to urgently call an ambulance for him, Chan climbed on the roof and saw how Jok-won hung up with her tied Frank. He will live until the bandit comes down from the cable. Chan threw the gun and asked Jok-won to surrender. He tells the guy that in fact he hates his father, not the police, but the scoundrel offered to play the familiar game again, this time putting the end of Frank's life. Chan got ready and ahead of the bandit. He was surrounded by special forces from all sides. The father came. He begs his son to surrender, but Jok-won has already made a decision and put a loaded gun on Chan. He was immediately removed by a sniper. Jok-won fell and released the cable, and Frank rolled down with Chan. They managed to cling to the roof, but the rope wrapped around Frank's neck. The structure could not stand it, and the partners continued their flight down. Grabbing the pillar, Chan held Frank with his feet until the end, but they still fell down. Fortunately, the rescuers managed to set up a pneumatic pillow. Unfortunately, after the explosion, Hai had a terrible scar. When she was discharged from the hospital, Chan finally made a proposal to the girl, and Hai agreed to become his wife. We go back to the past. When Frank was 10 years old, his father stole food from the store to feed his son, and at that moment his truck hit him to death. It was then that Frank first saw Inspector Chan, who supported him in such a difficult moment, and now he did the same.